Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
Your orders are drying up, customers are slipping away, and the business you've run successfully for years is starting to suffer. So, what's really going on? From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Chances are you've been hit by disruptive forces, as we can certainly understand only too well, or perhaps new players have come into the market, sweeping the business rug right from under your feet. According to well-known business author and advisor Alan Hargreaves, there are good and not so good ways to respond, which he writes about in his book Management Reboot, 52 Ideas to Make Things Happen. Alan starts with the way most people respond, and it's not so good.
Mostly they respond pretty badly. They tend to either freak out or think they have to do a lot of things, or they run and hide and say, no, we've always done it this way, we'll keep doing it this way. The taxi industry, for example, right? Uber comes along with a very simple idea. This is not a complicated idea. It would not have been that complicated for the taxi industry anywhere to say to a bunch of geeks, make us the same model, we want it in every taxi, and they could have competed with them. Instead, it was run and hide behind a regulatory wall, try and get it banned, rather than roll with it. You see some taxi drivers now have a little Uber membership as well, so they're picking up rides both ways. But the taxi industry probably could have done that. Instead, it said, no, this is the way we do it. And it was only a small part of their business they were changing.
So what's a better approach than the run and hide or panic?
Well, as I say, they're both very extreme reactions. You're obviously not going to get anywhere if you run and hide. The world's going to change around you. You're not going to go with it. Unfortunately, I also come across a lot of people who say, we've got to massively transform the entire company and turn it upside down. Corporate transformation is a huge job, usually ends in disaster. How many times do you hear people say, oh, we're having a great restructuring? Mostly you hear, oh, you know what they're doing now? And so I think we need to step back and be a little bit underwhelmed, not start to run on this, and look at the things we can do step by step as we work through our business. Take a simple digitisation exercise like, you might remember the decision journey, which was a theory of like how someone finds your product, how they compare it, how they get to like it, how they finally transact, whether they'll ever transact with you again in the future, and whether you have a relationship with them over time, the so-called decision journey. Every little part of that, how do they find out about your product? Well, if you're not on social media, you need to be. If you don't have a suitable website, you ought to get one. How do they compare it? There are good ways to actually delve into social media programming to prove your product is the best one on the market. How do you transact? Have you got an app where they can buy things with one click? Have you simplified your business so that people can actually easily do business with you? Because most new startups, most of it is focused on how easy it is to do business with them. Then the transaction happens. Do you capture the data? You've got a list of what they liked, who they clicked on, what they are looking for, so that you could go back to them at some stage and say, oh, we noticed that you liked that product. Would you be interested in this? And send them, the appropriate thing there. And so you build up a bank of relationships and a bank of data. Everyone talks about big data. Nothing wrong with little data either.
Well, you're a great believer in baby steps, aren't you, Alan?
The only way to do everything, especially in times of change, because it goes back to what I've said before about risk. You can't just decide you're going to bet the farm. You've got to put your toe in the water. But once you start to do one thing, if we go back to what I was just saying there, once you actually have a particular social media campaign, you'll start to think, oh, we might do another one slightly differently to capture that transaction. If we're going to make it easy for them to actually transact, we need one of these things. What do you find? At the end of the year, you've digitised an entire stream of business. That is one step at a time. The great thing about one step at a time is once you've taken the first step, you're going to take the next one because it will suggest what the next step is.
Now, disruption may cause anxiety, but you remind us that good businesses will do well regardless. And tell us about the father and son home furnishing store that you came across that was doing well despite the difficulties of the retail industry around it.
It was the one store in a mall that I was walking through that didn't look like it was in trouble. There was not a massive 50% discount sale sign on the window. The doors were wide open. It was beautifully laid out. You wanted to walk in there and buy everything that was in a particular setup because you could see it in your lounge room at home. As you walked in, you were welcomed You weren't pressured. It was obvious that if you had a problem, you could ask them. It was a very open operation. The pricing of the product there wasn't at a particularly steep discount. It wasn't overpriced. It was just sensibly priced. And so I talked to both of them about this, and it's a father and son business. The son is great at presentation. He's great with people. He's a customer person. He lays out the store. He does a beautiful job. Dad, he's an old-time furniture salesman, and he's interested in margin. So when they go on their buying trips, they don't look at what's the cheapest thing they can get. They say, what is the product with the best margin I can have here that I know I can sell? And so instead of saying, what can I sell cheaply, it's what can I sell most profitably? And of course, if you've got a lot of margin in your price, you can, when you're chatting to your customer, very happily say, well, I could probably knock a few % off here for you. But you're not saying to everyone who goes past, we're in trouble, it's a closing down sale, come in and buy things cheap.
And what do you think the lessons are for anybody else in business, retail or not?
I think those two things go together. It struck me the way that father and son represented two essential parts of a business. They're both mutually reinforcing. So authentic engagement hones the product selection. They go back and they buy the right things because they're working with their customers. They know what the customer will pay for it. So if you get both right, and you stand a good chance not only of making a sale, but also of actually making a profit.
That was business strategy specialist Alan Hargreaves. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.